Welcome to another video, and this video carries on from our last one where we were taking the new interaction toolkit for XR and having a look at incorporating the XR camera rig that was going to be using the new input system. And in this video in particular, I want to look at now bringing in our VR hands and using the new input system to actually control the animations on the virtual hands. So let's jump right in and take a look. So this scene just simply carries on from where we did the last session, where we used our XR rig. And we just hooked it all up with all the correct bits and pieces for the inputs. So that's all cool and working well. We tested it and built it to our headset. But what I found is now we're using this new input system that actually having your hands in VR will have to work slightly differently. And what I've done is I've created a package for the hands, which we used in my previous tutorials. It's the same package, just a little bit updated. And this one contains all the models, prefabs, animations, and the two prefabs are all hooked up and ready to go. They've got their animators connected, and the animators have two float parameters that are going to be taking input and then controlling whether you're gripping or pinching your hands. So with that in mind, let's have a look at how we can use the new input system and have our hands animate.
Setting up.
So first thing, let's get our hands set up and hooked into our XR rig. We're going to go to our XR rig in this scene. If you're starting afresh, then open up a blank scene, create a ground or whatever you want to do, and then right click, go to XR and use the, you can use the room scale XR rig or the stationary XR rig. I think I used the stationary one for this particular tutorial from memory. And then drop that into your scene. And then to set up all these components, if you're not sure how to get all this information into the XR controller, then please watch my tutorial because it goes through it, and it'll just set these as like your kind of default values. And I'll put the little link as a card on this video so you can go straight there and watch it. That's my XR rig. This is all ready to go. And I'm going to start dragging my hands now to my left hand controller. So I'm going to scroll down, and where it's got model prefab, I'm going to drag in my left hand model, and then do the same for my right hand controller, right hand model, like so. I'm going to go to my scene view. Now we can run this, and the hands will probably be there. You'll probably see your hands as you move around your controller. However, we won't be able to control our grip and fingers when we press the grip button or the select, or I think it's the activate button, which is the trigger. So we need to write a script that's going to sit on our hand models that is going to listen for those inputs using the new input system.
Creating the script.
We're going to go to our scripts folder. I'm going to right click. I'm going to create a C# script. And this is going to be called hand controller. And hit enter. And double click it to bring up Visual Studio. Okay, and once Visual Studio has opened, let's go and add in a couple of fields, a couple of variables up here. I've taken a lot of time to kind of research, look for a good way that we can get our VR hands working using the new input system. And some of the details are a little light at the minute. It's hard to find any real information. So what I'm going to do here, I may change in the next coming months, because the update to the interaction toolkit package was only a few weeks ago, so it's all still kind of new. So there might be a better way to do what we're going to do in the future, but we can always update. And if you've seen a better way, then pop a comment in the description below and I can check it out. But the way I'm going to approach this is the kind of way I do for most things, really. What we're going to do is just get a handle on our input action asset, which is have a look. Go down to samples. Let's just talk about what we're going to do here quickly. We've imported this input action, these default set of actions. We want to write a script that will access our default input interactions, and then it's going to get a handle on the two action map that it needs, the left hand and the right hand. And then out of those two, it's going to look for two particular actions, the select and the activate, because these is what's going to drive our hands. The select is going to be your grip and the activate is going to be the trigger. So through script, we're going to get a handle on our input actions, and we're going to get a link to the action map that we need. And then from the action map that we need, we want to store these two values and read from them whenever they're pressed. So our first thing we're going to do in script is get handle on our XRI default input actions. Let's do that. So if we're going to, we can write here serialize field, and by default it's already private. You don't really need the private keyword in there, but I like to put it in there just because it looks cool. I'm going to put input action asset. Oh, it's got me already. Got to, we need to put a namespace in here first. I'm going to put using Unity engine or input system. Then this should start auto completing. So we have input action asset. Perfect. That's what we need. And this is our action asset. I'm going to go ahead, Control S and save that. Let's go back to Unity a minute. Close this one down. Now, if I go to my hands, left hand model, if I just add that script to it, so the hand controller, this is a script we're currently working on. You see now we have a field here for our action asset, and it's got none input action asset. If we click on this circle, this is the action asset which we just had the window open for, containing all our action maps. We're going to go ahead and put that one in there. That's great. So that's all hooked up. Right, back to Visual Studio. Now we've got that, we want to specify what controller we're going to be looking for. And we're going to ask for a string here. So again, serialize field, private, be a string. And the name of this is going to be, we need a capital space, small letter for the variable name, controller name. We need to specify whether we're looking for the right or left controller in particular. And we need to make some strings for what action. So I'm going to go serialize field, private string, and this is going to be our action name for the trigger. And we need another one for an action name for the grip. So go ahead and copy that, paste, grip. That should be a big G, like so. So these are all the fields that we want to see in the inspector. This one is going to be specifying what particular action map we're using. We're using the left hand controller or the right hand controller. And these two strings are going to be there to allow the user to specify what input action we're looking for from this map. So we need to create some private variables here that we don't need to see in the inspector, so we don't need to serialize them. First thing we're going to need is an input action map. So the map containing all the actions. We're going to call this underscore action map. Two more input actions. So we're going to put private input action. So this is the action that's either going to be controlling our grip or trigger. So we'll go ahead and call this underscore input action for the trigger. Another input action for our grip. Like so. And we're also going to need to get a hook onto our animator so that we can control our hands. So we're going to put private animator underscore hand. Save that. Now let's dive back into Unity for a minute and fill out some of these fields. Right, so the controller name, we need to get up our input actions. So the controller name is going to be exactly as it's written here. So if we want to look for the left hand, which we have, we've dropped a script on the left hand, we need to type in exactly as it's written here, XRI left hand. So we'll go ahead and do that. So let's take it off my screen for a second. I'm going to go to my prefabs, left hand where I put my script, and the controller name is XRI left hand. Okay, so we've got that in. So that is going to enable us to look for this action map. And then we need to look for two specific actions, the grip and the trigger. And they are contained here. So select is the grip written. We only need to put the name of the action. So we just want to write select. So our action name for the grip is going to be here, and we're going to put select. And the action name for the trigger is our activate, be here. So we want to write activate exactly as it's written there. So activate. So these are the actions we want to get a hook onto in our script. So back into Visual Studio. We need to now hook all this up. And we're going to do that in our awake function. So as soon as our game fires up. So let's set our action map. So we're going to go underscore action map, and we're going to say equals action asset dot find action map, and we're looking for controller name. So it's going to look in our action asset, and it's going to try and find this action map called with a variable of controller name, which is a string which we've set to XRI left hand. So it's going to look for that action map and assign it to our private variable action map. Once we have a handle on our action map, we need to get a handle on our actions. So we're going to put input action for our, let's go for our grip first. And that's going to be on our action map that we've just assigned. We want to find an action called action name grip. Auto-filled there, so I'm going to click it in. There we go. I'm going to do exactly the same for the trigger. Click on our action map that we've got. We want to find the action for our grip trigger. Next one is easy. That's going to be our animator. So we're going to say our hand animator is equal to the animator on this component. So get component animator. There we are. So that's everything initialized at the start. We can put in some comments here so we know what's going on. Get all our actions. Get the animator. So we've set all these in our script on our hand, which is just here. So all this is now going to be hooked up. We're going to be looking in our default input actions. We're going to get our input map, which is for this one and specifically is our left hand, and then we're going to get the actions that we need for our grip and trigger buttons. So popping back into our script, let's move on to the next step. When we are looking at getting input actions or listening for input actions, we need to enable them. We're going to do that in a function for Unity called onEnable. So let's type void onEnable. We need to enable our input actions. So we're going to say input action for our grip enable. And same for the grip. Keep doing that. Same for the trigger. Yeah, we've enabled them, but we also need to disable them when the game is over. Copy this, paste, and we're going to put on disable. Change enable to disable. And save. What we're going to do here is we're going to create two floats that are going to be reading in the input actions from our grip and trigger buttons and storing those floats and then passing them to our hand animator so that it can apply the correct animation. So in our update function, I'm going to put var trigger value This is a new float that we're making here. It's going to be called, and we're going to assign this to the input action. Let's go grip first. And we want to read that value, store it as a float. Finish it off with 2 brackets, and do exactly the same for the grip. So I'm going to, hang on a minute, what have I done? I'm confusing myself. Should be grip value, shouldn't it? var grip value, come on down. There we go. So var grip value equals input action grip. Then we need to do the same for the trigger. Equals input action trigger dot read value. So we're reading the value from that input action. That's stored as a float. Now we need to set our hand animator to use these 2 values here. And that's quite easy to do. So we want to say hand animator dot set float. The name of the 2 parameters we have is contained within our animator. I can tell you they're called grip. We're going to give that grip parameter our grip value. A grip value. Do the same for the trigger. Copy that. Paste. Trigger here. Make sure we change this to trigger value. And save. Let's very quickly whiz through this and summarize. We set up some serialized private fields here, which are going to allow us to specify what controller we're looking for and the actions that we're looking for. And then we made some private variables that are going to store our action map and our input actions. And then in awake, we are assigning all of our bits and pieces. So our action map is going to be our action asset, and it's going to find an action map for our controller name, which is going to be XRI left hand or XRI right hand. And then once we've found that map, we can assign our input actions. So we can assign the action for our grip and assign the action for our trigger. But those names are specified by the values that we type in the inspector. It then gets a handle on the animator and caches it. And then we have the on enable and on disable doing their jobs for activating the input actions, disabling them when everything is completed or finished with our game and it's closed, or the game object is shut down. Then we have our game loop, our update function, which is creating 2 floats, and inside we're storing the values of the grip and the trigger, and then we're passing those values to our animator, where it's going to assign our parameters for grip and trigger the values of those buttons. So let's go ahead and hook up our right hand in the Unity inspector. This is our script completed. Go ahead and close that down. So we have the script on our left hand all set up and ready to go. Let's go to our right hand. Let's go add component hand controller. And we know we're looking for, let's bring back our input actions. So we've done our left hand, let's do our right hand. So it's XRI right hand. We'll type in XRI right hand, and again it's going to be the same as the left hand. The action name for the trigger is going to be activate, and this one is going to be select, like so. See, XR right hand, we have, this is our action map, and then our action is going to be activate and select, and all we're doing in script is looking for storing our input actions, and we're getting a handle on our input action map, and then we're looking for very specific actions which we're declaring in our script. So that hooks everything up. These scripts sits on our hand prefabs. Oh, and we'll see we're missing our input action asset, so we'll go ahead and make sure that's assigned. Now we need to make sure, double check we've dragged them into our model prefab section on our XR rig. We have done, you see they're all hooked up there and there. So now what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and build our game and see what we've got.
Testing our hands.
Okay, so here we are. We're in Unity now, and we've got our build on our headset, and as you can see, I'm pressing the buttons on my controllers and my hands are animating. So I'm pressing the grip and we're making a fist, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want. and then I can do my pinch, and then I've got the little pinchies. Still got my XR ray attractors, which are what the two giant red chopsticks are sticking out of my hands. Well, that's okay, we've got our hands now back in VR, but as you can see, we've got one small issue, which is really easy to fix actually. We'll do that very quickly. Is we now need to get our hands rotated around the right way. Just got to take them back 90 degrees and they'll be facing the right direction. But we're getting the inputs from our controllers, so we're able to grip and pinch, which is awesome. There we are. So there we saw that my hands were around the wrong way, so we can very quickly go ahead and fix that. We'll go to our left hand controller, and you can see under our model prefab we've also got model transform, so we can put a transform here that we can set our hand to. So if we right click in our left hand controller and we'll go to create empty, you can see it's put a transform in here. Now I can't remember which way around we're going to rotate this. I think we've got to go around that way. So what we'll do is we'll press E to get up our rotation, hold down shift to snap it, or is it control? Control to snap it, and we'll go around 90 degrees. And we'll call this and rotation offset. And then our left hand controller will drag this in. So our hand rotation offset is correct in there. And then we'll do exactly the same for the right hand controller. Create empty. Hold down control, rotate round to 90 degrees. And we'll call this right hand offset. And assign this in the inspector. There it is. Put it in there, and then we'll build again and see if our hands are the right way around. But I put it around the wrong way. We're facing the opposite direction now. Okay, so we're back, and I'm a genius. I nailed it the first time. So we've got our hands back in the scene now, and they're the right way around, and we're still listening for input using the new input system, which is awesome. Fantastic. So that's all working great. So there we go, that sets up our hands using the new input interaction system, and the VR hands I will make available. I'll put a link in the description for those, so all you need to do is drag those in and away you go once you've written your script. I really hope you liked the video and found it useful. I'm always doing these kind of videos, so if you're into graphics, you're into gaming, into game development, then maybe consider a subscription. That will really help me out. Got another video coming out on Sunday, which is quite an extensive look into light mapping, and that would be quite interesting. Maybe you want to check that one out. But until next week, I'll see you later.